When you're not speaking, just bear in mind to mute your mic, but then do remember to unmute yourself when you want to get involved. And please do use both the I am and also speak aloud as well. We're probably going to ask you to contribute and just have to pick on people a little bit to get the discussion going, but do join in as much as possible, because that's how you're going to benefit the most throughout the session. So hopefully you've had a look at the pre-work, and if you are able to have that up at the moment, that would be great. It would be good to hear any reflections on that, anything that stood out to people. Is there anyone that wants to start us off that did the pre-work and just wants to give a quick summary of what it was about for anyone who might not have been able to see it? Okay, I'm going to have to ask someone to contribute, and I will go through everyone and ask everyone to get involved. But David, just because you're at the top, can I ask you, first of all, did you do the pre-reading? And it doesn't matter if not, but if so, can you just tell us what it was about?
Sorry, I didn't manage to get that pre-reading done.
That's okay, no worries. Well, tell you what then, I'll give you just a highlight from it. So it was some statistics from the Northwest and broken down by local areas about pupils progressing into higher education. And one of the statistics was 12% in the Northwest of pupils who start Key Stage 5 qualifications progress to Russell Group universities. So that's slightly lower than the national average. So is that something that you've found is an aspiration for pupils in your school, or is it something that pupils even know about aspiring to go to a Russell Group university?
Not really in my school, to be honest. Like, universities hardly ever even mentioned about kind of aspirations of the kids. I think once I asked my form, I had like a little quiz on a Friday afternoon, and one of the questions was, I think, the most famous or one of the oldest and best universities in the world is Cambridge in England. Kind of what's the other university that's linked to it? And not one pupil in my class had heard of Oxford University, which is pretty shocking. So yeah, I mean, it could definitely needs to be raised more in my school, and I think pupils need to be more informed about other universities that aren't the Blackpool and Fylde College, because that's really their only opportunity for kind of higher education post A-level.
Yeah. Claire's nodding along. Definitely agree with you. That's really interesting reflection. Maybe Emma, because you're in a different local area, is that something that is similar in your experience in Bolton, or different at all?
Yeah, I think it's very much quite similar. I think the push that we have at the minute is to kind of even, never mind Russell Group University, I think it's just the idea of trying to getting them aware of university and that whole post-16 and what's available to them. We've had a lot of assemblies from, I can't remember, some charity or someone from Manchester, the universities in Manchester, coming around and talking about it. But yeah, we have a sixth form attached to our school, and even there, Russell Group, I don't think is not really mentioned, not at all really, which is a shame.
Wow, that's quite shocking.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's a real we've only got a very small sixth form. I think we've got about 50 students, I think, in our sixth form, so it's not massive. And a lot of it is very vocational, but there will be a few students who obviously can can access that and should be aiming there, but it's not a priority, and that's the thing, I think.
That's really interesting, thanks. Definitely. And it's really interesting, so Hannah and Zoe have just added in that their experiences may be different, but the pupils do know about universities, but again it's very limited to the local area, which is definitely something that I've seen. So yeah, we'll hopefully think of some ways that we can widen that knowledge and understanding and those aspirations within this session. So what we're going to start off by doing, and I'm not sure if everyone's on a laptop, so if you can't see this, do just let us know. We're going to think about significant transitions that pupils will experience throughout school, and some of those are ones that will be really obvious that you'll come up with, but it's important to think of different transitions that you can have an impact on as well. So transitions are significant moments in pupils' educational lifetime where they will experience certain choices and definitely points of change. So it's not just going from early years to primary school or primary school to secondary school or secondary school to college. There's lots of moments of transition within those as well. And there are also key moments of opportunity where as teachers we can have an impact on the choices that those young people are making and how they're viewing those transitions. So it'd be interesting to think about what those transitions look like and how you think that teachers can support pupils through that period of change. So are there any other ones that you've encountered, and maybe ways that you think you can support pupils at those times? So maybe if we go to James.
I think one of the key times at our school is the choices they make in sort of year 8 going into year 9. And a lot of them get to sort of year 9 and year 10 and they haven't had any guidance on making those choices, and they get to year 10 and try and change subjects, and they just made them literally on a whim without any real sort of guidance or thought for future careers. So you often get people in my subjects asking to change to music or something, and they have no real idea of what they should be doing in terms of their future and their career.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It seems to be getting younger and younger that these really important decisions that are going to affect pupils for the rest of their life are having to be made. So I definitely think that you as teachers and us all have a really important role to play in that. Sam, have you got any reflections on that, or maybe thinking about when we should start having these conversations with pupils, whether it's within secondary school or even earlier?
I think it's quite difficult really, because I think asking a 12-year-old what they want to do when they're grown up is quite a difficult thing to expect them to know. But I think helping them to pick things that keep their options open is a useful thing to do. And I had an experience last week where I was helping a group of year 11s write a CV, and I think actually I know for a fact, like my school, we're really bad at helping them be equipped, like encouraging them to do maybe a part-time job or have a skill or do a Duke of Edinburgh award or something that they can add to a CV. And actually that's kind of part of further education or employment that maybe we're not really equipping pupils for as well as we could.
Definitely. And do you think that kind of barrier of teachers not having those conversations and doing that, is that personally for you because you don't have time? We know how packed the curriculum is, and it's not kind of a priority, or is it that you don't feel like you have that knowledge to share?
I think it's a bit of both, really. So I think it would be a good thing to be focused on in kind of a form session. And this year I've only got a year 7 form, so it seems almost too early to be having those sorts of conversations. But equally, I think I would feel really challenged and overwhelmed if I had an older form group and was sort of responsible for leading those conversations. I don't think I'd know all the options that are available and kind of what they should be doing to tick the boxes, really.
Yeah, it can definitely seem like quite an overwhelming piece of work to stay knowledgeable about and be able to advise upon, especially because there are so many options that are often changing as well. So you're definitely not alone in feeling like that. And I think hopefully that's something that we'll be able to address, at least in part, throughout this session and then in further access work.
Definitely, and I think a key document that we're going to point you to many times throughout this session is what used to be called the Access Toolkit and is now called the Post-School Success Toolkit. It has a lot of key information in there that will help to upskill you, but also links that you can use with your pupils and things that are pre-made that could be used with your classes, but also in form time at various different age levels. So we'll definitely be sharing the link to that with you, and it's something to explore further after this session as well. Yeah, and Hannah's added in as well, having a year 11 or a year 12 class, knowing about those options and telling them, that's definitely something that we're going to share with you during this session, and also something to follow up on afterwards. We'll provide that information. So that's definitely something we'll be coming back to. Yes, Zoe. I will share the link now. Let me know if that doesn't work, and I will send you the name of the site to get to it. So, just thinking about your role in this then, and whether this is your job, because it's not necessarily something that you might expect. It's not what's on your job description. It can feel like you're almost a careers advisor at times. So to think about why it's important that you do get involved in this. So if the aim is to ensure that pupils are equipped to make these well-informed choices, they need to have continual exposure to these options and this information and knowledge throughout their school life. So starting at early years, it's important that all teachers know what those options are and know how they can support that in an age-appropriate way. As you'll all know, how tight funding is in schools, there's just simply not the budget to take place through one-to-one or group sessions. There's definitely been cuts to having professional careers advisors, although I did see that hopefully there's some more funding being made available to that, particularly to schools in socioeconomic deprived areas. So yeah, hopefully that might change, but it's definitely kind of becoming more of a teacher's job than someone specifically trained or with their job description as that to focus on careers. So this kind of thinks about 3 different levels, and you might feel like your role fits into 2 of those. So as a teacher of the curriculum, but also as a form tutor, you might provide that pastoral support as well. And if we think about who has the most exposure to each of these, to pupils at each of these levels, it's actually the teacher who has the most contact with pupils on a day-to-day level. So you have the potential to have the most impact on your pupils in their school life, and that's why it's so important that you are kind of upskilled and feel confident to do this. So this information is from the Department for Education, and it is saying that it's the statutory guidance for schools on careers education and what they should provide. So advice that you're providing about careers should be impartial. We're not pushing pupils into any particular option. We should be giving them information on a range of options, so education and training, including apprenticeships and other vocational pathways that are available post 16 and post 18, and we will be giving you some information about some of those in a little bit. And the person that's giving that guidance should consider the best interests of the pupils. So giving them things that are appropriate for their age, giving them information that's appropriate for their ability or the results that they're predicted to get is important as well. So we're going to play a bit of a quiz. If you can go on Kahoot.it, hopefully, okay, that's not working as a link. Hopefully this will work, and the pin that you need to type in to join the game is this number here, so 1934427. It'll ask for the game pin to start off with, and then it'll ask you just to put your name in so we can see that you've joined. We'll give you a couple of minutes to join the game. Let us know if you're having any problems. I can see that Sam and Zoe have got on, so it is working. And then we're going to read out some statements about post-school pathways. It's going to be really quick fire, so go with your gut instinct, and I think that will give us an interesting, it's definitely not a test. I definitely didn't know all the answers before this, but it'd be interesting to see kind of which things are assumptions that we make maybe, or are fictional things that the majority of us believe, and which ones are the information, the correct information. Claire is going to be our quiz master and is going to give us a little bit more detail about some of these after. So we're just waiting for James and David. I'll give you one more minute to try and get on there. Okay, David, if you're able to join and start playing, then please do join in. If it's not loading up, then you'll just have to tally your score and be honest with us after about how you got on. So you're going to have 5 seconds for each to hear each of the statements that I'll read out, and then 10 seconds to type in your answer. So the first one, hopefully you're ready to go. So number 1, apprenticeships are not advertised on a central database. Is that fact or fiction? Fiction is the red triangle, fact is the blue diamond. It's going to be very quick. So that was the first one.
Okay, did everyone get a chance to answer that, or was that just a little bit too quick?
It might have been too quick, so if you want to record your own scores afterwards, that is absolutely fine. So it's going to be I think every time the fiction is going to be the red and fact is going to be blue. So if you get a chance to do it, fine. If not, add up your own score.
Yeah, we'll trust you on it. And so with this, this is a fact. So unhelpfully, there isn't really a Centaur database that is guaranteed to list every single apprenticeship out there. Most of them are listed on the government's Find an Apprenticeship service, but it isn't guaranteed. And so the best way to think about it is that really an apprenticeship is a job, and it's like searching for a job. You need to look on quite a few different sources to make sure that you're giving yourself the most opportunities. So Find an Apprenticeship from .gov.uk is the best source, but it's always worth considering local or regional training providers, UCAS for degree level apprenticeships, and then also employers themselves.
Okay, next one. You're going to have 5 seconds, so get ready. Your highest attaining pupils should always be encouraged to go to university. Is that fact or fiction? We're a bit better on that one. We're getting the answers this time.
Okay, so most people have gone for fiction, and we would agree. So prestigious apprenticeships with reputable firms are going to be currency in exactly the same way that degrees from top universities are. And so particularly at the higher and degree level, there are some amazing apprenticeships out there that are really competitive and offer a whole wealth of high quality training and networking opportunities. So just to give you an example of one of them, MI5 has a higher apprenticeship which takes a young person through software engineering, telecommunications, information assurance, whatever that is, and cyber operations. It goes over 2 years, with one of them spent working actually in MI5 or MI6, and it has a really competitive salary as well. And to get onto that, you need 3 good A levels at A to C, with 2 of them in STEM subjects. So it's really easy to see how having an apprenticeship at that level would be worth just as much, arguably even more, than a degree from a university.
Really interesting, and I definitely want to retrain. Next one. Apprenticeships are less transferable qualifications than degrees. So fact or fiction?
Okay, so this one looks a little bit more split. It is a fact. So the bigger and the more well-known an organisation is, the more transferable that apprenticeship might be. And a lot of the really big firms might offer professional qualifications or that degree apprenticeship, which would stand alone. But what we need to remember with apprenticeships is that at its core, it's training to do a specific job. So if a pupil is a bit unsure about their career path, it might be an idea for them to stick to a degree in a broader subject rather than committing to a certain profession or a field.
Okay, next one. Honours degrees take 3 years to complete. Fact or fiction?
Okay, really interesting. So this is actually fiction because it's not always true. 3 years is definitely the most common, but it's quite, there are a lot of universities offer sandwich courses that include a year in industry or a year abroad. And then also some universities offer 2-year honours degrees now for the most able and dedicated students. And they tend to be in areas like business or accounting, so it can be a bit of a fast track if you've got that level of commitment.
So, yeah, I'm just going to put the colours into the chat so that you can refer back to them. So fact is going to be red and fiction is blue. Hopefully that sorts it out. There isn't a prize, so don't worry, Zoe, that you've been getting them all wrong. So the next one, apprenticeships take 2 years to complete. Fact, which is red, or fiction, which is blue. Oh no, fiction is red, fact is blue on this one. Not very helpful. I'll read them out each time as we go along.
Okay, so apprenticeships do not take 2 years to complete. They come in such a wide range of levels, ranging from level 2, which is broadly GCSE level, right up to level 7, which is the equivalent of a postgrad, you know, linked into that is the amount of time that they take to complete. So they tend to last anywhere between 2 and 7 years.
Great, thank you, Claire. Okay, next one. I will try to read out the colours. Just be glad this is not a test, and if you use this with your class, hopefully you are more prepared than us. So, high attaining pupils should be discouraged from taking a gap year. Fact is red, fiction is blue.
Okay, another quite interesting split. So we would say fiction. So apart from the kind of personal value that a year travelling or working might add for some students, just in terms of their own life experience and their independence, if they can spend that year getting high quality work experience that's relevant to their course or the industry or particular career that they want to move into, that can provide a real boost to their eventual applications, and the extra time spent considering those options before making the commitment may well reduce the chance of being dissatisfied later down the line and dropping out. One thing that is really interesting to note is that young people from low-income backgrounds have a much higher dropout rate at university, so potentially having a little bit more time to think about those options could be a real benefit.
Great, and I think what you're saying there, Zoe, about talking about your own experience is really important to share that with pupils, and talk about impartially, sharing what you experienced and what you did and your experience, not just of your gap years, but also of university and college and your choices that you made, so that they have kind of a wider range of experiences to draw from. Okay, next one. Apprenticeships can be as competitive as top university places. The colours are fact, red, fiction, blue.
Yeah, big fact. As competitive, if not more so. If you consider that a course at a large Russell Group university could take 100 students per year, maybe more, whereas an apprenticeship provider is likely to only be hiring one person to fill that role, because an apprenticeship is a job at the end of the day. You can imagine the level of competition, particularly for those really prestigious and high status ones, you know, like the MI5 one that I just mentioned, thousands of applicants. So it's really worth letting your pupils know that, so that they don't think that an apprenticeship is automatically an easy option. It's very competitive and they have to work really hard to get the one that they want.
Okay, next one. Degrees from Russell Group universities are valued more by employers, and that means more compared to degrees from non-Russell Group universities. So fiction is red, fact is blue.
So a little bit of disagreement on this, and it may sound a little bit controversial, but we would say that this is a fact. With the exception of some specialist courses, Russell Group degrees are still recognised as being more challenging to access and to achieve higher level degrees from than other universities, and they therefore do still carry more weight on CVs and applications.
Yeah, and just reflecting back on what I think it was David said at the beginning, it is really useful to share that with your students and to make them aware of the differences if they don't know that those are options and those are choices that are going to affect their future career. Okay, we have got 4 more. So this one is, apprenticeships are a quicker route to professional qualifications than university. So fiction, red, fact, blue.
Okay, most of you have gone for fact, but this isn't necessarily true. So larger firms offer routes into professional qualifications at all different levels, and when you consider the amount of time that an apprenticeship can take, you could be doing a 5-year apprenticeship, which then leads to a professional qualification at the end, versus a 3-year degree, then moving into the professional qualification. So it really depends on the employer. So it may be the case that in the main this is true, but not always. So a bit of a trick one, that one.
Okay, the next one is, high attaining pupils should be discouraged from taking vocational awards, for example, BTECs. So fiction, red, fact, blue.
Most of you have gone for fiction, and we'd agree with this as well. What we definitely do think pupils should do is think really carefully when they're picking their options, looking if they can at different careers, different training routes like apprenticeships or degrees within their preferred field, just to get a sense of what subjects and qualifications are accepted and valued. At Russell Group universities, A-levels tend to be the standard currency, but that's not always the case, and a lot of them will accept a vocational qualification alongside A-levels, or for more practically based courses they will accept vocational awards, but it's worth noting that the expected grades are often distinction, distinction, distinction. So again, we're looking at those same levels of attainment.
Great. Okay, second to last one. Apprenticeships are available only in fields that require technical, practical skills. So fact, red, fiction, blue.
Cool, a lot of mixed opinion there. It's fiction, so many professional fields offer apprenticeships, like in law and accounting and surveying, and this is actually where a lot of those high status, higher or degree level apprenticeships can be found as well.
Great, and the last question, sorry Zoe, I know they keep changing. James is currently in the lead, but we'll see if we can get Zoe. Oh, you're not actually in last place, Zoe, so don't worry. You seem to be getting it wrong, intentionally getting it right. Last one, apprenticeships are available exclusively to young people aged 16 to 25. Fact, red, fiction, blue.
Yeah, pretty much everyone got that right, so that is a fiction. Although the apprenticeship levy promotes young apprenticeships to plug the growing skills gap, an apprenticeship is open to people at all ages and all walks of life.
Great, brilliant. So I hope that brought some of the statements to life a little bit and maybe dispelled some of the kind of myths around post-school progression that might be commonly encountered amongst teachers or amongst pupils. So if we go back to the PowerPoint, and just to pick up on something that Zoe mentioned and that I mentioned earlier on around offering your experience and making pupils aware of what you've encountered is really important. But it's also important to bear in mind that as individuals, we only know what we know. So be aware of the limitations of the experiences of university and college and school that you've had, and clue yourself up is really important on the gaps in your knowledge in the areas that you maybe don't have as much experience of or understanding of. To clue yourself up on that is really important. So thinking about that, what the options are in post-school pathways, we've put them up on the screen here, and after this session, do you want to place it on there? Sorry, we've got two laptops open, so I think that's why. Thanks for telling us, James, so you would have had it all the way through. So on the screen now, and hopefully you can concentrate a bit better now the drilling and the music have stopped. The options for post-school pathways are there, and the information will be sent out after this with really detailed information taken from the post-school success toolkit to give you more information on that. But it'd be good to hear now if there's any that it would be you have questions about specifically, any that you've just never heard of before, that we can give you a quick summary of what that means. Are there any that you've never encountered, any that you are really familiar with? Would be good to hear from you. Okay, that's great if there's no particular questions and they all kind of look like things that you've heard of before. Yeah, that information is quite detailed, so it's definitely something to look into after this. And I think some of it may be things that you feel you can share with your pupils, particularly maybe the older ones, but also making younger pupils aware of the variety of options that there are. Claire, do you want to give a really quick overview of Applied Vocational Awards? I'm sure you will be familiar with them once you hear of them.
Yeah, so question from Zoe, Applied Vocational Awards include dancing certificates, etc. That wouldn't come under the Applied Vocational Award unless it was something like a BTEC in dance and performing arts. I think kind of dancing certificates that you might take at a sort of local establishment aren't quite the same. So the vocational awards are things like BTECs, OCR, City and Guilds. There are a more practical approach than A-levels, so kind of applying learning to real life situations and job roles, and they're assessed using a blend of coursework and exams. So still kind of college based, but just take a bit more of a practical approach to learning about a subject than a theoretical A-level.
And your question, Sam, is about knowing when to advise employment over apprenticeships. So in this information, it's included the entry requirements for each of the things, so that might be something really useful to look into, thinking of specific pupils or classes that you might be teaching. Is there anything else that you would add to that, Claire?
Yeah, I think with the employment one, it's particularly when they're post 18, it's about informing each young person about what's going to give them the best possible chance of progression, not just now, but later in life. So you're probably all aware yourself that employers nowadays are looking for more and more high-level skills and qualifications, whatever level that job might be at. So you might want to encourage young people who are leaving sixth form, if they want to go into work, maybe they could definitely look at apprenticeships, but at least look at school leaver programs, which are kind of work-based training with an employer directly. They should result in a professional qualification. The only thing with those is that they're not as kind of widely regulated and recognised, so there could be difficulties in transferring those qualifications later on, but at least it gives something more recognised on a CV than just going into a job locally.
Okay, so hopefully the information afterwards will be, that's sent out afterwards will be really useful to provide more detail, but for now we really want to get on to the kind of practical side of things that you can do in the classroom. So hopefully on your screen this isn't too small. There's lots of ideas of practical strategies that you can use within your classroom, within your form. It might be in other ways within school. It would be really interesting. I think we've got you back now, James. So I'm just saying that on the screen now are lots of practical strategies that you could use within school, within your classroom, within your... It might be within assemblies. If you want to leave and come back in, that's absolutely fine, David, or anyone else who's struggling with this background music. Just do that as and when you need to, and I'll let you straight back into the chat. So it would be interesting now to kind of hand over to you to share your reflection on either these strategies, or to share strategies that you found have worked really well in building pupils' awareness of pathways. Can we start off with maybe Sam? Did any of these stand out to you as things that you think would work really well, or are there any things that you've done yourself in school or seen done in your school that have helped to build pupils' awareness about post-school pathways?
So something that I have done, last year I worked with a year 8 form, and when they were picking their options, at the same time they were doing a scheme of work in our personal development, PSHE lessons about careers. So we actually spent a good few hours of them sort of looking at different pathways, researching it, creating a roadmap of how they were going to get there and key points in their life, and sort of thinking it through, which was useful. I think there's some good ideas. I like the idea about the hot seat activity where pupils get to ask any question, but I guess it's just finding a suitable time to do that. And when do you sacrifice a maths lesson, or is that relevant in year 7 for people to do? I'm not sure how that would fit in with the week, maybe.
Yeah, definitely, and I think it is an interesting dilemma to consider when that's suitable and when to sacrifice other learning for this. I think it's good to think of this as a form of learning that is going to be really beneficial to them in life. So it's not that they're not learning in that time, it's that they're learning something different, but it's definitely something to weigh up and that you may have to talk to your kind of head of department about. All of the links in here, so Zoe said that the King's College interactive games platform sounds good, and there are other links in there. So there's the Barclays Life Skills, there's loads of different links. These are all going to be, I will share the PowerPoint afterwards and they should work, but these are all strategies that are taken from that post-school success toolkit. I think it's in section 2, so you can follow up with these links straight away through that. Is having someone in kind of a visitor or a volunteer, or doing that yourself to talk about their experience of life post-school, something that anyone's experienced, or something that anyone's seen done well in school, or something that you're thinking of doing this year? I'll just kind of hand that over to anyone if it's something that you've seen.
I know at my school they arranged like a job fair, and they got loads of different people in from all different industries, and they had like stalls, and it was really well run and really well managed. And the kids had like a lesson or 2 lessons, and they could just wander around and get information and ask questions. And it was just a really nice experience for them to be able to see all the different sectors. That was a really good thing that they did. I had no involvement, but it was really good.
Yeah, that sounds great. And there's actually some really powerful statistics out there that I can find the source for and send out about the impact that every employer interaction has on a young person's chances of successful post-school progression, or on the flip side, not becoming NEET. Something like 4 employer interactions cuts the risk in half. So something like that can make a real impact on a young person's life chances.
And I think it's useful to think of your contacts in terms of people that you know that you maybe could not necessarily asked to do this, but could even create kind of case studies that you can share. So it might be people that you went to university with, friends that you have, family members who will all have done such a wide variety of things. Hannah's just put in about a keywords wall, and it could also be that you added these case studies on just to show the variety of things that you can do after school, and that there's not just one route for pupils to go down. I really like the idea as well, Hannah, about jobs that you can do with geography, and not just thinking about the straightforward answers that pupils might come up with, and that really applies to all subjects. Why should they choose that to do at GCSE if it's an option, or at A-level? Why should they be interested in your subject is really helpful with engagement, but also to raise their awareness of these pathways. I agree with you on that one, so definitely.
Likewise.
I think the jobs you can do with English is everything, in my opinion. And something else maybe to reflect on after this call is the different effort and amount of input that it requires from you to do each of these strategies compared to the impact that that's going to have. So Claire's already talked about having a volunteering or someone into hot seat or in whatever way you can make that work in your classroom has a really high impact, and also thinking about how you can work with your colleagues, sharing this information with them, sharing these strategies with them, and the post-school success toolkit, and making this a whole school thing that's important and that's prioritised. It's not just about you and your classroom or your form. Sharing these ideas and having that impact across the school and across all pupils will be really beneficial, and it can be a really good opportunity, if this is something that you're really passionate about, for you to take on a leadership role within school in a formal or informal way. Whether it's kind of leading on a mini access curriculum is something that participants in the past have done, that's used in certain year groups, in form time. You can be really creative with this, and there's many different routes that you can go down depending on whether you want to keep this within your classroom or sharing it within your department or across your across form tutors. There's lots of different ideas and options and ways that you can have an impact. So definitely do kind of not just keep this to yourself, but please do feel free to share it. Okay, so one of the final things we're going to do is ask you to make a commitment. So Claire is just going to put the link into, it's this one, to this Padlet page to go on, and if you want to, please do add a comment of a strategy that you would like to try, that you're going to go away, or something that you've learned that you're going to use within your classroom. Try and be as specific as you can, because that's going to make it actually happen. So what is it that you're going to do, or that maybe you've learned from this? When are you going to do that? So what's your time scale? Is it something you want to do tomorrow, next week, before Christmas, or maybe it's something to think about after Christmas? Do you need anyone else to be involved? So is it something you need to talk to your head of department about? Is it something to go to the senior leadership team about? Is it something that you want the support of your LDO from? Do include that detail on there. And is it a specific class that you want to focus on with this? Is it your vision class? Is it your form group? Add that detail in. And this doesn't have to be something that you write on the Padlet. It can just be making that commitment to yourself that this is really important, and this is something that you, that the information that you've learned from this session, or that you're going to go away and continue to learn from, is not just something that you kind of leave behind once you log off from the webinar. So I'll leave that Padlet page with you if you want to put it on there to come back to. I think it's also this kind of topic of access links really closely with a lot of people's vision projects, and also with your planning of the curriculum and your kind of medium-term and short-term plans. So do bear that in mind and think about whether you want to do any work yourself after this on updating those and adding some of these strategies in. Okay, so the final thing is just a bit more information of where to go following this call.
Yes, so we've mentioned the Post-School Success Toolkit a few times, and I cannot stress what an amazing document this is enough. It's basically a one-stop shop resource for you to use within your schools, and to share widely as well with any of your colleagues at any level and any role within school. It walks you through, excuse the drilling, it walks you through some of the key kinds of skills and competencies that a young person might need to make those successful transitions, and how you can help develop those within your everyday teaching practice. And then it walks you through the different post-16 and post-18 routes in a bit more detail, and again how you can promote awareness of all of those different routes in an impartial way. And finally, it gives you those really practical strategies on how you can get your young people talking and thinking about all of these different issues. It's where we pulled those ideas on the previous slide from. So if you liked the look of those, give it a read, and there'll be a lot in there that hopefully you should be able to just take away ready to go.
Yeah, and it's essentially where all of the information, both from this session and that we're going to send out after this session, is from. So do explore it as much as you can, even if it's something that you just dip into. Mm-hmm. And like Claire said, do share this. She's going to put in a link now to the website page where you can download this from. So try and share the link and encourage them to download it from there rather than just sending the PDF, because it really helps Teach First to know the impact that this is having. If more people are downloading it from that link, you might have emailed the PDF version to 20 people who've then used it, but as a charity we only see that one person has, so we don't know that it's having as much impact as it genuinely is. So yeah, we'd encourage you to share the link if possible, but do share it widely.
And then also we've got there, get involved with the Big Class Challenge. So this particularly ties in with that idea of having a volunteer come in and leading a lesson that's about post-school progression. So we are essentially doing a bit of a movement to have everybody in the country try and do a lesson before and breaking up for Christmas, but you can do it afterwards. And the whole idea of the Big Class Challenge is that there's ready-made packs for you at all levels of teaching, whether it's early years right up to Key Stage 5. There are resources and activities for you to use to just lead a lesson yourself, but there's also a branch of it that suggests getting a volunteer in from different different employment experiences, different sectors, who can just lead a session with your young people, talking about what their journey has been, what skills they've learned, all the different twists and turns that life has thrown at them, and basically how they've got to where they are today, to hopefully inspire the students that you have in your classroom to just maybe think a little bit differently about what could be in their future, and what's out there really. All of the resources for that are on the Teach First website. Holly's just put the link there. Again, have a look through. The packs are ready to go. And yeah, please do take part and share with anyone else that you think might be interested as well.
Yeah, and this is an ideal time of year for many reasons of why to do this. So as you're kind of approaching Christmas, and maybe it's that last week or the last couple of weeks where pupils are in and out of your classroom, this is something that is pre-made. The resources are all there. Have a look, download it, and do use it as well, because it's really valuable information. And again, share this link with your colleagues, and it's available for everyone to use and to benefit from. And the final thing is that there is going to be a secondary conference day session around access on top of this. I think it goes into a lot more detail around apprenticeships and those kind of post-school routes. So that's definitely something that you can still attend if this is something that you're interested in. Just because you've attended the webinar, it's not going to be a repeat of this session. So do still sign up to that if it's something that you're interested in.
Particularly those of you who mentioned at the beginning that you might find it a bit intimidating to talk about all of those different options confidently, in front of the whole class. This session is much more going into what are all the different nuts and bolts of the different pathways, different qualifications, etc. So that should leave you kind of going out armed with a lot more knowledge about what those are. So it's a lot of information in that session that you can take away.
Great. So if we come back to the start of the session and the things we hoped you would get from this, there's definitely things that hopefully, as you can see, this is an area where there is a lot of information, and it wasn't something that we just wanted to read out at you for an hour and 15 minutes. So there's lots of links that we've shared, and there's going to be postwork sent out afterwards about those various routes and more information about that. And it's also something that will be heavily feature in that conference day session. So there's definitely things to continue building on, but hopefully you've got an idea and some strategies and where to go to find out that extra information following this session. And just a reminder of how this is linked to your development this year. So these are the progression framework descriptors that I've picked out that I think this session kind of links really closely to. So if you have set an objective this half term, or are thinking about doing that in the future, this is definitely something that you can link access back to, and is something that you could use as evidence as you go through the year. And then finally, so these are just things to close off. Please do, if you have any questions that are kind of burning right now, put them in the chat just as I go through these final things, so that we can share the answers before time runs out. So any questions that you've got right now, do just be putting those in as I'm kind of finishing off. So this half term, you will be doing a journal reflection, evidencing your half term 2 objective, and setting a half term 3 progression framework objective. And the deadline for those things is the 15th of December. Your LDO will be in touch with you, I hope, with a reminder about those things. But this is just so you make sure you have the information now. We've already mentioned the Big Class Challenge, so do follow the link that I've sent out there, and it will also be in the bulletin that's being sent out tomorrow, to get those pre-prepared resources and more information. There's also links in the bulletin to sign up for the socials. Claire is going to put that link in now, and that sign up closes tomorrow, so do sign up if you're interested. Right now, I would recommend doing that. And also Innovation Award, information about that is in the bulletin. And the final link, I'm aware that there's been quite a few, so please do just send 5 minutes now having a look through those after the call, or saving them to your favourites if it's something you're going to follow up on, is giving us feedback on this session. So we will be running some of these again, and it would be really useful to know if you found this interesting, and if it's information that you found useful, if it's something that you think other participants would benefit from and that we should repeat, or if there's certain bits that you found more useful than others. All of that information is really valuable and will really influence what we do in future half terms. So yeah, please do follow the link to the feedback, or feel free to also, I will include it. It doesn't seem to work, the link, so I'll include it in the email that I send out after this session. But even if it's just sending an email to your LDO with kind of what went wells and even better ifs, it will be very much appreciated. So thank you very much for attending and for your time. Do get in touch with your LDO if you have any questions. These are definitely conversations that you can follow up with in half term 3, and things that we can build on and think about how this links to your classroom practice in coaching conversations. Thank you all for your time.
Thanks everyone.
And speak to you soon. Thanks, Zoe. Have a nice evening.
Bye.